Street talk time. Wasn't that good with Coronation Street this week, Gemma? Best Coronation Street in 20 years. Cindy Beale is back in Weatherfield.
No, that's the wrong show.
That's the wrong show, isn't it? Apparently, EastEnders has been quite good this week. I haven't watched any of it because I don't, but it's one of those times again where I've been getting a little bit jealous reading on the forums about everybody saying how brilliant EastEnders is going.
What's that? There's a funny gif that people use on Twitter of that woman. I think she's from EastEnders, going crazy and like throwing things and like vibrating with rage by a window.
I don't know this though. You'll have to show me later.
Okay.
I'm not up in EastEnders meme culture. Since Cindy's back from the dead, you had a flashback to 2014. Fat Boy appeared.
Oh, I love Fat Boy.
And other
Last
things.
time, every time we talk about EastEnders, we get in trouble. Let's not do it.
No, I just think from what I've heard, it was like
lady.
really.
Do you recognise this lady getting angry?
No, I don't.
She
but
goes
she
crazy
looks like
and then she throws curtains everywhere.
Oh, that does look like
upends
an
the
EastEnders
table.
thing. Yeah, okay.
You can tell she's from London because she's got a big belt.
No, I just think it sounded very like they brought Cindy Beale back from the dead in EastEnders. We'll get onto Corrie in a minute, I promise. And they did it really cleverly, and they did a flashback to 2014, and they inserted her into some old scenes. Very, very. Who are we going to bring back from the dead on Coronation Street?
Imran. I told you exactly my scenario, and you poo-pooed me.
What, that we didn't actually see his soul leave his mouth?
Yeah, we didn't see a little Imran ghost with a beard float out like whoop, 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 whoop.
I think he looked pretty much dead when we saw it.
I told you my theory that he was secretly working on a terrorism or like mob case, and he was found out some information as he was doing the lawyering, and then he had to go into witness protection, and then they took him secretly away, and he was like, "But Toya is my one true love," and they're like, "Shut up, Imran, get in the car," and then he drove him off somewhere, and now he's been living there secretly.
It could happen, couldn't it? There's not been. I don't think there's been many Coronation Street characters
because
that have
honestly, just fallen over when you.
Yeah, and we saw that paramedic wasn't really doing a very good job with the chest compressions. She was in on it.
That's exactly. I think it was a man. That is exactly right.
It was a man.
I think that's canon then. It wasn't just a lazy extra. It was actually part of the plot.
Make it happen. We made #BringBackHenry happen.
We're manifesting it into the universe. I've read The Secret. I don't think that. But this is what I'm doing. Manifesting.
I don't know whether Coronation Street has got a character as high a calibre as Cindy Beale that has died off screen.
No.
Which she was believed to have done, and that we can rewrite. I mean,
you
got Kirsty. You got Kirsty. She died off screen, didn't she? But I don't get the only one that I would accept is if we've said this before. If Dennis Tanner isn't actually dead, because I'm so fuming all these years later about the way his death was treated on episode 10,000. I want that to be a big old Dennis trick and for him to come riding on back into Weatherfield.
It perfectly fits the character, that's the thing. And we've been watching old episodes of Corrie again from the 60s, and honestly, Dennis Tanner is my dream
absolutely best
character. He is one of my favourite characters of all time.
Yeah, I do. But okay. I don't know whether he's big for everybody. I don't know whether we've got anybody, but anyway. Congratulations to EastEnders fans for having a jolly good programme to watch this week, but Corrie wasn't half bad either.
Coronation Street can be quite canny about what information it gives you about characters unnecessarily, and I said before about it not filling in blanks and stuff, and it's because it is keeping things, which obviously EastEnders didn't do with Cindy Beale, but then they went, so what? You've already paid for your licence fee. What are you going to do about it?
We're allowed to talk about Cindy Beale on this podcast anyway, aren't we? Because she's played by Michelle Collins. Most famous, obviously, for her fantastic Mancunian accent when she was Stella Price in Coronation Street 10 years ago.
Her Mancunian accent is as good as mine.
Maybe they could bring back Stella Price, but cast as somebody else, maybe.
We both sort of get paid for it, don't we?
Yeah, you do sometimes. Right, shall we actually get on to this week's Coronation Street? And I apologise in advance for my shoddily arranged stories this week, because Stephen Reed had his finger in many pies this week, and I was saying, well, does this belong here? Does that belong there? So the way that I've sorted this, I'm going to do the nipper, snapper, and Ryan's story kind of merged together, even though they're not really merged, but Ryan was getting his kit off to try and pay for the money that the factory needs. So I'm calling it Nipper Snapped Up. That was a new one for this week. That's all right.
Good job, Michael.
It's Nipper Snapped Up by Lou, and obviously the showing privates, Ryan. Ronnie and Cher comes next. So that's Stephen's other storyline of the week, where there was definitely some crossover. We have got Paulie Paul
What's
getting
his
up to all
friend's
sorts
name?
in the lake. Shelley.
Shelley? We need to think of some pun for Shelley stealing things.
I've tried, but I couldn't think of anything. Papa Dom was in it this week.
What's that?
You know, the Dom story.
Who's Dom? Oh,
yeah. Who's Dom? Exactly. That story managed to make it into all 3 of this week's episodes, and still we're saying who's Dom. And there's a bit of the Cassie come home story as well. So, would you like to do take your pick of the Stephen stories, Gemma? Do you want to synopsise the Nipper Snapper one, or do you want to do the Rovers one?
When are they going to do a tribute song to Uncle Stephen?
I'm going to let you take this first one, Gemma, just to focus you in on this.
Because I'm looking at my phone.
So, I apologise in advance for anything that belongs in another storyline. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. Disclaimer. Over to you, Gemma. What's been going on this week? Int Factra.
On Monday, Angelique, she was the one who was doing the secret deal. Well, not secret. The deals with the American guy.
Yes, it was Angelique and Owen.
So they were the initial ones that understood the amazing appeal of Nipper Snapper.
Yes.
She goes to the cafe and sees Carla, and she's like, I need to see you about the contract. And when they finally get this meeting, she says, I don't want to renew it. I love this. She's like, we're selling loads of these, but Owen said we could do it ourselves.
Yeah. Who'd have thought that somebody else could come up with the idea of putting words on clothes t-shirts, and then making small child-sized t-shirts with the same words on? That's
not
genius.
the same. It's not the same, Michael. It's similar.
Similar words on, yeah. Like, it's really not the best idea, is it? I mean, they somehow managed... How much do they manage to get out of it? They get £70,000 each, the 3 of them. So... I
can't believe it, honestly. Anyway, the first idea that Owen and Angelique are pitching is, that's the way the cookie crumbles on the adult t-shirt, and the child's t-shirt says, the cookie. So I don't think they've quite got it. Anyway, they leave, and Stephen and Carla...
what's her name? Lydia Flint from the new brewery owner. She's got a whole book full of quotes.
She's got loads of quotes.
She needs to team up with Angelique and Owen. They'd wipe the floor with the Nipper Snapper lot.
Her quote is, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. If you can't stand the kitchen, get out of the heat.
Yeah.
Nice one. So, Stephen and Carla have to break the news to Sarah and Michael.
I want them to do one with one of them says "Padam," and then the kid says "Community Centre."
And then about 3 people go.
I get that. I get it.
Do you listen to that stupid podcast? Right, back at home, Ryan tells Carla and Peter, I can't help you pay off Lou because I've the people sponsoring me are demanding too much. And Carla says, don't worry about it. And then Ryan still keeps getting badgered by this guy that wants him to make a private video of his privates.
Private video? Literally.
Stephen's on the phone with Angelique later.
Tell you what, Guy's probably was a peeping Thomas in a tree at the lake on Monday's episode as well, wasn't he? If he was at that lake with Billy and Paul, he'd be able to snap away himself.
White man down. So, Stephen's on the phone with Angelique later, and he says, look, why don't you buy the company, and then you can have all of our great ideas.
Sarah and Michael said, they're our ideas.
But we came up with them.
That took me a good 2 minutes to come up with all of those.
Copyright. And Michael's like, to be frank, I don't think I've got another good idea in me. That was my one good idea.
And then the Bee Gees come in and say, it's only words.
Oh, good God. Okay, Carla says it makes sense. So Sarah and Michael...
Or was it Kieran McCarthy as part of Boyzone?
I can't tell you the answer.
I'm doing all the stupid
Sarah
details today.
Michael are discussing it in the bistro later, and Sarah seems a bit more convinced than Michael it's a good idea. Tim overhears, digs about Stephen being dodgy, and tells Sarah there's a lot about her uncle that she doesn't know, including the fact that he told Elaine that he was being coercively controlled by Gabrielle, and the fact that he made up this company, Seagull, and that he pretended that she was part of it. Sarah doesn't know any of this.
I love how Tim's been sitting on this information for the best part of, a month, do you think? He's known that Stephen's been dodgy and been doing all sorts, and he's literally lived next door to Sarah Louise, and he could have told her, and he's like, no, the story time has just come about.
I'm going to keep it to myself.
Now I'm going to drop this truth bomb.
An episode.
Yeah. Although you must admit, Gemma,
No,
Tim Hater of the podcast.
No, what do I have to admit?
Was quite funny when he came into the shop looking for cauliflower today, wasn't it?
What was it for?
It sells cauliflower cheese.
No, cauliflower cheese is that good. I'm sorry, but it's not.
And you managed to avoid making fat joke as well, Coronation Street. You have matured since earlier this year.
Cruciferous vegetables. Peter comes in to see Carla later and she tells him that she's worried and she feels bad about him to sell nipper snapper after all the hard work that everyone put into it. And Peter's like, why don't you give them some of the money?
Is it like... Nipper Snapper was just a glint in Michael's eye 6 months ago, wasn't it?
Well,
is it really that easy to make tens of thousands of pounds if you're in business?
Michael?
If you're in a backstreet underwear
factory? Are you asking me? No, I don't know, is the answer.
You should get in on it.
Well, Peter says, why don't you give them some money? And, Carla did basically come in and steal all of their stuff because she said that they used their photocopier, which means that she owns everything that they came up with. Ryan comes into the Rovers and he has arranged to meet up with Carla, and then Daisy's talking to him about people making stupid comments online. Jenny intervenes, and because they're talking about equipment for social media stuff, and Jenny says, oh, Daisy's got a ring light, she doesn't use it anymore. And everyone gets a bit awkward because obviously Daisy's worrying. Daisy's like, look, social media stuff did not work out well for me. She doesn't want... She also is very aware of the fact that it led to Ryan being, scarred by this acid attack, and now it just a very awkward conversation.
Well, also... she's still, things still not great between them because she's moved in nearby and they had the kiss and everything, and Daniel still doesn't know about it. And
Ryan's still got the hots for her, and we don't really know what she feels about it, but we know that she's awkward. Anyway, at the Platts later, Audrey's got to speaking to Gail about this equity release.
She's got to bring the letter around
that
again,
keeps sending her letters, and she gets Gail to look at it, and they're like, this looks really real. So Sarah comes in and tells them what Tim had said about Gabrielle and Stephen. Did they know that Gabrielle was controlling him? And they're like, oh, sorry, yeah, but we did know this.
I got very confused, and you had to explain this bit to me because I didn't understand what Sarah thought was going on, because Tim told her Stephen says he's been coercively controlled, and my immediate reaction to this would be for Sarah to say, no, that's a load of rubbish. Have you, Gail or Mum and Gran, have you heard what lies Tim's been spreading? But actually she did believe it, didn't she? Because then she goes and phones up Gabrielle.
She's like, hey,
accuses her of such.
Leave my Uncle Stephen alone. It's very weird that they... I guess they don't need to because he's her boss now, kind of. But it is weird to me that there's this whole background where Stephen and Sarah must have been incredibly close when they were in Milan together. And all of that's kind of gone unspoken. No, like, Stephen's never been like, hey, Sarah, remember that time when we were up against it at Milan Fashion Week? And
flashback.
You helped me out with those extra long jeans flies, and we were having a espresso in the square. And she's like, oh, Uncle Stephen, you're right. You know, they don't...
No.
Like, they've just kind of forgotten all about that, but you don't really need to because they've already got quite a strong relationship.
Yeah, I don't think...
I would like a few
little references.
She's got a very strong relationship, even more than almost anybody else. Because although that, Audrey's his mum and Gail's his sister.
Well, Stephen was, Audrey didn't even have anything to do with him for
Sarah's
the first
probably the
40 years of his
person
life.
who knows him the best out of the whole family. And she has, everything's been, and she's not finding it weird that he's turned into a complete manipulative freak in the last 10 years of her life, out of completely nowhere. She's not even asking any questions.
Well, her suspicions are definitely raised this week.
Well, she phones Gabrielle up and she's like, leave my Uncle Stephen alone. He doesn't need thieves and liars like you. And Gabrielle's like, oh, Sarah, you're so dumb, but at least you're pretty. she says you're naive and trusting of Stephen. He's the one who's not being honest with you, and puts the phone down on her. So Carla tells Stephen and Michael that they're going to get a cut of the sale of Nipper Snapper and try to get Stephen to do his best with the deal. So Sarah goes back to the Platts and they show this equity release letter, and she says, yeah, it looks fake. It looks like a big scam. And Audrey's like, do you think it's something to do with the fact that Stephen had an estate agent round at my house last year to evaluate? It wouldn't have anything to do with that, would it? And Sarah's like, hang on a minute, and has another look at the letter.
Yeah, I mean, she knows that Stephen is a master letter forger and scammer, and he's up to no good.
She knows that he forged the information about her.
I mean, there's no question that this isn't a forgery or anything, but she...
She's
not that Stephen's done it, but
as soon as they say Stephen,
her interest is piqued.
Mm-hmm. So Daisy brings round this ring light to Ryan, and they get chatting, and he tells her that the hospital has told him he could start to put makeup on the scars to minimise the appearance of them, and Daisy's like, I can help you with that if you need it, and he's very grateful, so she leaves. Then we get to see Sarah confronting Stephen about this letter from the equity release people and Gabrielle, and she said to him, what the hell is going on here? And he says, I can explain. And he says, look, maybe I did steal money off Audrey, but everyone's been doing it. Why can't I have a go? He says, I'm just doing business deals. I'm using it for business deals. And once I've got the money, I'll pay her back. And she'll never even know it happened. Then we get to see Ryan in the room with a ring light. He's sending a sexy Ovid for this guy. He's got a filter function that takes the scars away.
He's suddenly discovered the filter in whatever video program he's using. Well, if he'd found that, 2 months ago, wouldn't that have solved all his problems? The whole thing is, here's my bod, but not my face. Yeah. But he was just putting these filters on as if it was nothing.
My question is, are they asking poor Ryan Prescott to go into work, sit there for an hour, get his scars put on, go in, have filming, so they can computer generate the scars away from his face?
Yeah, that seems like a bit of a fool's errand, that does, yeah.
Or are they going to introduce Weatherfield, Weatherfield Google specs, where everyone just starts wearing Google glasses and it's got a filter in them that gets rid of Ryan's scars, and so we see through.
And they don't need to bother making them up anymore. Perfect.
Easy. Later on, Stephen, Sarah and Michael are in the pub later, and Stephen says that Angelique has agreed to buy Nipper Snapper, and I'm not sure if they're getting 70k each or...
Yeah, they said 70k each.
Yeah, but this solves so many problems.
Yeah.
And everyone's more glum than I would thought they would have been, because Michael's moaning about money, Stephen's getting 70 grand, that's that's a big wad of cash.
Yeah.
And Carla presumably is getting at least this much, if not more.
I can't remember.
And so why is she moaning about this bloody watch and saying that Peter's got to have... It must be between them.
No, I don't think it is. It doesn't matter
anyway.
If
it's between them, it's not quite enough for Carla to pay this watch off, is it?
No, but I think it's...
Anyway, they're all happy, or not. And Sarah gets up to speak to Audrey and tells her... She knows the letter's real because she's spoken to Stephen, but she's now telling Audrey the letter is a scam, and Audrey's like, oh, that's good then.
Yeah, because she's now she's got this money and she doesn't want to...
No, she knows that Stephen has got 70 grand and she thinks he's going to put this back into Audrey's house.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And so Audrey's like, thank goodness for that. Sarah takes Stephen to one side and says, you make sure you pay back every penny you took. And I'm not going to feel guilty about this. I'm not going to believe a single word you say ever again. You and me are over, basically. On Wednesday, Stephen tells Sarah and Carla he's meeting Angelique next week to finalise this deal. But he'd rather do it alone. He doesn't want to talk to her about it. And Sarah's overheard him having a conversation to make a meeting later on that day. And she thinks it's Angelique. And so she follows him to this hotel where they're having this meeting. Which hotel do you think it is, Michael?
Oh, I couldn't guess.
She thinks he's trying to cut them out of the deal so he can get a bit more money. But it turns out that no, it's actually a meeting he's having with Jenny. And he feeds her this bollocks about, I'm going to say that, about the fact that he's might have the family's best interests at heart and all this stuff. And it turns out he's there with Jenny to help her with the Newton and Ridley deal, which we don't get to see. No. Carla meets up with Lou. So Lou, remind everybody, is Rufus's ex-wife, widow, and she's the one that is now hassling Carla and Peter for the watch money that Peter stole earlier in the year. And Carla gives Lou some of the cash that they owe them and says the rest is coming. Lou's stressed out and she says, I can see why. This was weird. She's like, oh, you know what? I can see why Rufus used to take drugs. And Carla's like, yeah, drugs are cool, aren't they? Did you take any? And Lou's like, yeah, I did actually, but it was just too groovy for me. All these vibrant colours and hallucinations and stuff. Wow, they just couldn't keep up the editing in the suite, so I had to stop taking them. And Carla's like, what did you say? Paranoia, funny lights, hallucinations.
Feeling like you're having a mental breakdown? By gum, that sounds like what I had. I thought that this was a fairly clunky way of Carla finding out what Stephen had maybe been up to. It was just one of those coincidences yet again that, you know, if Lou hadn't said it, but I know that things like that do happen in real life, but it really did feel the shoehorned.
It's just the way that Lou
have this lovely gift wrap plot development, Carla. Go and scurry off and do a bit of investigating this. There you go, love from Lou.
It's also the way that Lou seems to be blissfully unaware of what she's actually saying, where she keeps insisting to Carla that Rufus was a incredibly conscientious microdosing drug user who would never have taken too much and drowned himself in a swimming pool. Why? I don't understand how you couldn't put the two together.
No.
And also I don't understand why nobody's like putting a... Feels cruel to me to let somebody labour under the idea, even though this is completely true in the world of Coronation Street, but in real life, you wouldn't encourage this poor woman to believe that her husband was murdered when it feels very clear that he died of an overdose.
Oh yeah, I know.
Goes to show you, doesn't it? If anybody ever dies, it's probably a conspiracy. So Carla goes and tells Roy. She's like, Roy, do you remember that time when I thought I was having a mental breakdown again? And it was almost like I was on drugs. Guess what? I think I was on drugs. I think somebody drugged me with LSD. And I really liked, this was good writing, because Carla did come across like 50-50 as to whether she was paranoid and slightly on the edge of having another mental breakdown, or if she's actually telling the truth about
she
the fact
came
that
across
she was
that way, but she seems very, very convinced all of a sudden, like the blinkers have been taken off her eyes, and of course I was drugged. And
but nobody's asking her the question, who do you think did it? That's the obvious question. That's the elephant in the room that Coronation Street's not addressing here. So she's saying, look, Lou described microdosing exactly like what I experienced, and I think that somebody near me has drugged me with LSD. And Roy's like, that sounds crazy. And she says, look, here's a printout I found online of a very reputable drugs website that's told me that all of my symptoms match exactly to LSD. And it came and went when my psychosis, that I had before, never did. And Roy says, you've got to be cautious about this, but who do you think would have done it? And Sarah, is it Rufus, if it's Stephen? And Roy, I don't think any of those people did it. And Carla's convinced. To me, it seems obvious. If I was Carla, I'd think it was Rufus.
What?
It's a shame. I think that as soon as Stephen finds out that Carla is suspicious that she was drugged with LSD, he's going to steer her towards thinking it was Rufus.
That would make sense for Rufus to try and... What was even he trying to do? He was more interested in a nipper snapper, wasn't he?
Everyone loves nipper snapper. It's the best business idea that's ever been invented ever since coloured sports bras.
So maybe if she thinks that he was microdosing her just to try and get an easier nipper snapper deal or something, possibly. But did her psychosis?
I mean, if you're Stephen, you say, do you not think it's suspicious that it stopped right after Rovers died? It's obvious. It's, you know.
That makes sense for it to go that way. This is when Roy
phones
up
no,
Peter.
I don't think so. He phones up Peter. He tells us he's worried about Carla. So when Carla gets home, who does she find on the sofa? It's hard to tell because she has a different, yet even more fabulous hairstyle. It's Dr. Gaddis.
Hooray!
Hooray! She's come in. She's bobbed in on
so
the way
nice.
home.
Yeah, she just popped in on the way home from work.
Don't worry, I was going to the co-op anyway to get a meal deal. How are you, Carla? And Carla says, oh, this is well out of order. I'm actually a bit knocked about this. Why are people talking about me behind my back? And Gaddis says, Peter's concerned that you're having paranoid thoughts. And Peter's like, you think you've been spiked with LSD? It sounds a bit paranoid to me. And Carla says to Dr. Gaddis, I'm actually fine. And Gaddis is relieved and goes home.
I'm not even going to make a comment about the implausibility of Dr. Gaddis actually popping around Carla's, because I was just pleased to see her.
Well,
she can turn up anywhere she likes.
Even Carla mentioned that it was impossible to get a doctor's appointment at the medical centre these days.
She did.
Carla goes around and sees Roy. He says, I didn't get Dr. Gaddis involved, but I can give you the details of a clinic who can test for LSD in your body for up to 90 days. And Carla says, well, if the results come back positive, I'm going to raise hell.
This is where she's speaking and like the voiceover is Jenny taking Stephen upstairs, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, another Stephen voiceover.
Probably unnecessary, but...
Well, I thought it was unnecessary that Carla had to go and see Roy for him to tell her that there's a test that it can detect LSD.
You were telling me this before Roy mentioned it, weren't you?
Well,
you said, there's a test.
If Dr. Gaddis... No, I was saying if Dr. Gaddis... Even why didn't she even say? So, hang on, Carla, what do you think you've been drugged with? Because she can
was
tell.
Off the clock.
She's like, look, I honestly don't really care. I'm here for the drama. What's going on? But yeah, I thought it was weird. Dr. Gaddis seems like a more likely person to say we can test you for LSD. Maybe the NHS doesn't do that anymore.
Maybe not.
Maybe it's not free anymore on the NHS. On Friday, Sarah is suspicious of Stephen's plans for going on holiday with Jenny because she says, where are you getting all the money for that? And he says, well, actually, it's Jenny that's paying because she's got this money now from selling the Rovers.
Yeah, Sarah wants him to be giving the money back to Audrey so that the whole matter can have a line drawn under it.
Exactly.
But he's like, she'll get it back eventually.
Roy phones Carla and she says, yeah, I ordered a kit, but don't tell Peter. Stephen comes in and says, can we talk about the Nipper Snapper Snail?
Nipper Snapper Snail? Is that their mascot?
Yeah, it's a little snail. What's his name? It's probably called Stephen.
Stephen the Snail. Yeah.
Right, so Stephen finds himself...
Well, they would call the snail Shelley, but we've already got a Shelley in the programme at the moment, haven't we?
Okay, right, so Stephen ends up homeless because Tim is trying to sell the flat. And so
he's just decided he's too much cauliflower has put him in a bad mood this week, isn't it? It's like, how dare you go out with Stephen? Stephen, you're not living with me anymore. Yeah. He's just decided
Tim's
to come out of his hibernation.
My wife's forcing me to eat a side dish as though it's a main course. Anyway,
yeah, he's kicking him out of Red Bank.
He's yeah. And so
I hope somebody moves into that flat because it seems like a bit of a waste putting it all together if that's all we got to see of it.
I know, that's what we were saying when they put the set together in the first place. He says to Sarah, I'm going to have to take a bit out of this money from the Nipper Snapper sale. And she's like, no way, that's grand. So Carla and Sarah are talking about Stephen later, and Sarah almost drops him in it by saying that this mess is all his own fault. Yeah,
so we're kind of left at the end of the week where Sarah is absolutely convinced that Stephen has been up to no good. I mean, he's as good as admitted that he has been doing some shady deals with the family, but he's trying to convince her that family first for him. He would never do anything to harm them, but she doesn't trust him as far as she can throw him at the moment, does she?
Well, we also haven't said where he ends up living, but that will be in a different...
Yes.
Can we please sell Nipper Snapper to Angelique and Owen and never talk of it again?
They've got it.
They haven't, because Stephen's going to have a meeting with them next week.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I don't want to see it. I want to just hear that they've sold it, and that's the end of it. I'm sick and tired of Nipper Snapper. It's the most irritating, stupid thing.
Yeah,
it's because they tried to get too specific with it. It's like when Steve had a t-shirt business, we didn't even know what he was putting on the t-shirts. Then they made Mule Face, which was stupid because it was supposed to be trendy and cool.
It just feels that sometimes the Corrie writers, They're writers, aren't they? They're not necessarily
it's really
entrepreneurs.
Frustrating because they're like, right, we need a business idea. This business idea is great, and then blah 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 blah. Right, so come up with a business idea. It's like, if I had an idea for a business that could net me 70k in the space of 6 months, I wouldn't be sitting here with you, would I? Trying to think of ideas for how Uncle Stephen can shack up with Jenny and the Rovers.
Yeah, I hope it's over soon. I mean, I'm assuming that the whole Stephen shebang is going to be over by the end of the year, and hopefully that's going to be it for Nippersnapper.
What do you mean?
Well.
Hopefully that'll be the end of it. Uncle Stephen better not die at the end of this, because I'm going to riot.
I don't want
He's my favourite person.
I really have got. I mean, I don't know. I don't think anyone's got any idea. I assume they haven't even filmed it yet. But I'd really like Stephen not to die, just for a change.
Just don't kill off a Corrie villain, because there's so many. Then we can Cindy Beale him, can't we?
I don't think that they would do that. I don't think that Stephen Reed is down in the annals of soap history alongside Cindy Beale somehow.
How dare you? How dare you?
No, I just don't want him to die, because it seems a bit too, too
they all
predictable.
die in the end. Coronation Street used to have this thing where they said all the villains will always get their comeuppance, and it really derailed itself once Tracy got out of prison on a technicality.
Yeah,
they can't pretend now that there's a strict moral code in the Corrie universe. I mean, Gary murdered Rick Neelan. I know it was in self-defense, but he still got away with it.
Yeah,
and we never actually got to see what happened in that scene. We have Gary's word for the fact that Rick Neelan tried to kill him. The last thing we saw was him straddling Rick Neelan, wasn't it?
No, I think Rick was coming on to him. In a murderous sense.
But you know what I mean? If they wanted to do a flashback back from the grave, Cindy Beale, they could do it with Rick Neelan.
No, because they found his body.
Did they?
Yes, they definitely did. Rick Neelan is absolutely 100% been found.
Unless I saw his corpse myself. I don't believe it.
Yeah.
But they could do a flashback at least, where we find out that actually Gary did kill him.
In cold blood.
Yeah. We've only got Gary's word for it. I've been saying this for years.
The ship has sailed on Gary Windass.
Ship sailed on that.
I mean, a year ago, it was building up to something. A year ago, it was building up to Volume Wall, wasn't it? And it felt like, this is finally it, the climax of the Gary Windass saga that's been bubbling for the last 3 years. And we've barely seen him since. He's like every time he shows up in a scene at the moment, it's like, I think I got away with that one.
Don't tell anyone. I think that whole week was just to give Millie Gibson experience with the Volume Wall, so she could get a job on Doctor Who.
Yeah, she's probably put that on her CV.
She's like, I've done Volume Wall. Brilliant, easy. I threw a glass over the side.
Do you feel that the stakes are being raised in the Stephen story now?
No, everything's perfect.
I feel like
Nothing's wrong with it.
I feel like he needs to do another murder or something, because I didn't mind this week's Coronation Street, but it was very, very businessy and numbers heavy, wasn't it? And that's not my favourite thing. It's like nobody's really talking about Rufus much anymore. They are a little bit. Leo and Teddy completely been forgotten about. It just doesn't feel like, even though a few more people know about him, if I was Stephen, I wouldn't really be panicking. And I think at this stage, he should be sweating more, but he's still playing it fairly cool.
I mean, he got away with that tie pin really easily.
Yeah, that's the thing. They're bringing up things that could lead to his downfall, but then it's kind of explained away really quickly. And it's like, okay, he gets to live another day. So, although I am enjoying the story, obviously, I don't feel the stakes at this stage are as high as they should be. And
Who's that lady that came into the Rovers with all the books of quotes?
I've forgotten her name, but I did say it earlier.
She
Flint.
is gonna die. Maybe he's gonna kill her.
Well, this is
every time a new character is tangentially involved in Stephen's story, I'm like, Dad.
Maybe that's how they're gonna, sort out that story.
Maybe he's gonna kill Daisy.
Anyway, we're not allowed to talk about it yet because that's the next story. Gonna kill Daisy? No, I think not.
Can you imagine how much Twitter would lose their minds if Stephen Reed killed Daisy?
Oh my gosh.
I would not be happy with that either.
This test that Carla's ordered off, it ain't gonna work, is it? Because they said it's a 90-day test for LSD, but she was tripping out back in March time.
If they're testing hair, well, I guess it depends on the thing is
She hasn't washed her hair for 3 months.
Your hair. It depends on what the test is, because your hair, obviously, it takes longer than 90 days to grow. But if the chemical degrades within 90 days, then it doesn't matter how long your hair's been growing.
It just
Do you know what I mean? Some chemicals stay in your hair or your nails or things like that for a long period of time. But if it's been denatured or something,
it just felt odd to me that they made a thing of saying this 90-day when everyone can look back and say no, it was earlier than 90 days. Carla herself didn't even say, hang on a minute, it was back in March when I was having this psychotic episode.
I know, you would have thought that she would have thought to herself, well, it was longer ago than 90 days.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose what people are saying, and probably they'll go down this route, is she'll say, well, when I was in the hospital, they took blood samples, so can I get hold of this blood sample? And that says, yes, I've got LSD. I
also don't think they would give them to you. I don't think the NHS keeps your blood samples and then hands them back out to you.
I'll tell you what, she needs to enlist.
Bistro Ninja.
Moira. Moira's a brilliant blood stealer, isn't she? Do you remember?
She loves it, yeah. She's a vampire.
Yeah, so like I'm semi enjoying it, but it's a little bit too businessy, and I think there needs to be another murder soon. Otherwise, I'm at risk of losing interest in it. You
can't mix business with pleasure.
They're clearly building up to something to happen in the autumn, but I don't know.
Who's gonna die?
I still don't know at the moment. You know.
Imagine if it was Henry.
It's not going to be Henry. I just don't want it to be either Owen or Angelique or Lou, because they're the most dull boring people for it to be. Yet it probably will be one of those.
Important.
Even Elaine, I think she's probably off the hook now, unless maybe she's having a little break at the moment so that she can come back and be murdered. That's been a thing before. Elaine, is Paula having a little breather before her final scenes on the street? Although if she does get killed, then it's more obvious that it's Stephen. We've said it many times before that they need to go big, but I don't know. So let's do the Rovers side of it. Anything good going on Twitter at the moment, Gemma? Gemma's just checked out. That's fine. I'm going to tell you all about the Ronnie and Cher story, business stuff. So on Monday, you had to explain this bit for me about what's going on with these 6 houses, because I was busy tapping away notes for other things. I said, Gemma, what's this scheme that Ed's come up? And you said, well, Ed's found a pair of people who've gone tits up, and they were having a development to 6 houses with planning permission, and he reckons that he can get them. So that's exactly what it is.
That's literally the only
They're going to buy some land and they're going to build some houses on them. Planning permission's already in place. This is a win-win. They need to get in there quick. Ed's kind of been bolstered by Ronnie's motivational talks over the last few weeks, hasn't he? And he wants to, he's like, yeah, let's take a bit of a gamble in business, way. And he says, it's going to take all the money that we've got, though. Now, unbeknownst to him, they've got a little bit less cash than he actually thinks, because Ronnie's been using it to buy Newton and Ridley shares. So Ronnie's getting a bit hot under the collar about all this.
He hasn't been doing insider trading.
He has. He'll tell you, he's been doing it all. So he says, right,
it's only okay if you're a politician.
So Ronnie says, look, Debbie, we're in a bit of trouble here. Debbie this week was basically saying, just do it. It'll be fine. Like nothing could go wrong. Buy the shares. You're gonna be swimming in a swimming pool of money by the end of the week. Just do it. And then when it all goes wrong at the end of the week, she says, well, nobody pressured you into it, Ronnie. Don't blame this on me. Debbie, you literally just lit that touch paper and stood back this week.
She's like a little devil on your shoulder, isn't she? She's like, eat the eclair. And then next week she's like, now you're fat.
Gemma, that's Hightus. You're not allowed to say that. She's just a devil on your shoulder.
Oh, sorry.
So Ronnie's telling Debbie about it, and he says, look, I'd have gone for this if I hadn't bought the shares. And she says, no, you did the right thing. Don't worry about it. But Ed's not listening to Ronnie at all this week, is he? He's like, I've done this. Sorry, I didn't tell you, but I've signed these papers. Sorry, I didn't tell you. I've done this. Yeah, exactly. He's going off as he's on an independent street this week.
What they need to do is have a clear definition of their roles in this business.
Well, they did, didn't they? Ed said to Ronnie last week, "I'll leave you to do all the money things." And but I know that like buying the surveyor, getting the surveyor and everything this week wasn't that, but Ed was
gung ho.
Yeah, he was a little bit gung ho about it. You're right. So Stephen and Jenny, so they're part of this storyline as well. So they're in the back of the Rovers later, and she's getting a bit teary because it's the last day as her owner of the Rovers return.
Of her being the owner.
What did I say?
You said it doesn't matter.
I'm sure I said that. I didn't like this scene particularly. Jenny, from out of nowhere this week, has suddenly become completely and utterly, hopelessly
emotionally dependent
on Stephen. She's like saying, "Stephen, what would I do without you?" When he offers to take her to the brewery meeting in the hotel, obviously, to sign this paperwork. But what has Stephen done at all to help her? He's literally had nothing to do with her apart from, as you say, killing her boyfriends. But all of a sudden, he's her Superman, Canadian Superman. I think I'd have preferred Jenny to have been a little bit more, I can do this myself, and been a big girl about it. But anyway, it got them together at by the middle of the week, which is what I wanted. So They almost lock lips on Monday. She goes in for a kiss, but then when he gets a text message from Sarah and he has to dash, so it was close, but no cigar at that point. Later on, the Bailey brothers and Debbie are meeting back in the Rovers again. They've just been approved for a loan. Okay, business. Now they just need a 20% deposit. Ed doesn't realise they don't have the money for this. Mm-hmm. Debbie is still saying to Ronnie, "Don't mind, shares will land, it's going to be all fine, you'll be laughing by the end of the week."
How come Debbie doesn't have any cash to invest herself?
She does, she just prefers everybody to do it for her, doesn't she?
Seems like it'd be quite funny if you did this.
Yeah. Ed says, "Right, we need to go and snap this deal up. Ronnie wants a surveyor out first." So that's where it all goes on Wednesdays.
Well, Ronnie's using the surveyor as a stalling technique because he's saying, "Oh, my friend's going to do it at mates rates," but he's not doing it yet.
Yeah, exactly. He
and Ronnie's like, Ed's like, "Let's do it now."
I did find all this somewhat exciting this week. The race between what's going to happen first. Is the buyout going to happen? Is it going to get announced first? Even though when the sealed bid's going on.
Boring business talk. It was still like, oh, how is he going to get out of this? What's Ed going to say?
I did enjoy this. I thought I didn't particularly think a whole lot of Wednesday's episode, but when it kind of came to the crunch on Friday, I was well in on it. So we see, as you say, Jenny met up with Stephen to go and sell the Rovers off. I was a bit disappointed that we didn't see the meeting.
Why was there a set for Newton and Ridley's conference room, and there's all these conference room things happening, like Philip Newton resigning and Henry going to talk to the board and Jenny and Stephen trying to sell the Rovers to them? Why are we not seeing any of these scenes when we know that there was a set?
I think there could have been a fairly poignant scene there. But then maybe if they'd had the business meeting, it would have been more of just Jenny blubbering to Stephen, and it wouldn't have been quite what I wanted out of it.
Also, it would have been boring business stuff, and they always do on Corrie, where they write a number on a bit of paper and fold it up and put it across the table.
They've already made the decision about how much it's going to be. Anyway, so they're there having this meeting. At the cafe, though, Debbie's asking Ronnie how long he's going to keep stalling Ed with this sale, and Ronnie says, "Look, I'm going to tell him I've hired my mate to be a surveyor, but he can't start for a few days, eh? That'll shut him up until Friday's episode, when hopefully the shares are going to skyrocket." So back at home, though, Eddie says, "Oh, I've jumped the gun again. Sorry, Ronnie, but I've got my own surveyor and I've hired him and he's on site right now doing it. In fact, maybe we should just get on the blower and make the offer now before we lose our chance." And Ronnie's like, "No, bloody hell, Ed. Take the hint, man. We can't do it yet." Jenny and Stephen come back to the pub later. Deal's gone through, and Jenny is no longer the owner of the Rovers return.
Why?
Is this a momentous occasion?
I feel like I'm not worried about it because it feels the same as what happened when Jenny and Johnny first took over the Rovers, and they were like, "Jenny and Johnny are going to do a makeover in the Rovers, and they're going to ruin everything." and they're gonna make it rubbish, and then it never happened, and it was all a big fake out joke.
But the thing is, this has happened, and just pausing the synopsis for a bit and thinking, well, Philip Newton has resigned as the CEO from Newton and Ridley now. This Waterford group, is that what it's called, have got Newton and Ridley. I can't see how they're going to reverse that.
Right, the thing is, we're watching Corrie in 2023, but we're also watching Corrie in 1961. And in 1961, Newton and Ridley, the brewery, was in control of...
Yeah, for the first 35 years of Coronation Street, Newton and Ridley
Jack
was in.
Walker were just tenant, landlord and landlady, and they had to kind of do what they were told. So there was a plot where Annie and Jack went on holiday, and a guy came from the brewery as a relief manager for a week and kind of meddled with everything.
Mr. Plumber, no relation.
Mm-hmm. And then just now they're coming and saying, "Oh, he made a complaint," and they're gonna. They're there's a lot of meddling going on from the Newton and Ridley brewery with Jack and Annie, but
they generally get by, and it's generally considered as Annie's pub, isn't it? So I mean, we said this back when this storyline started 3 weeks or so ago, that whether Jenny's the owner or not,
it's not a big deal that the landlord or landlady doesn't actually own the pub.
Yeah,
and it's actually more abnormal to have somebody who owns the pub.
I don't know in real life what's normal now.
Independent pubs are very, very rare. They're all chains, aren't they?
I suppose they are being bought out by chains now, aren't they? Yeah.
They're all like Green and King and
Jenny's rolling in it now. The sale's gone through now, isn't she? So I think as long as I suppose they are worried about their jobs and what kind of meddling will this.
I think this woman's going to come in and make a bunch of annoying suggestions. She's going to implement a couple of changes. It's going to go down like a lead balloon. Everyone's going to be staring at her. She's going to come out with a bunch of trite little quotes. Everyone's going to call her an idiot, and then she'll leave and say, "I guess I'll leave it up to you. You seem to know what you're doing," and then we'll never get mentioned again. And then probably in 5 years' time, the writers will have forgotten that Jenny sold it to Newton and Ridley.
Is this going to be a Kevin forgets his son situation?
Well, there are so many bits where they've done something and they've forgotten they did it. Like Asher being a paramedic. Do you remember that?
Oh, that's not been forgotten. They just put that on ice for a little bit. That's what you get taught in paramedic school as well. Put it on ice. Yeah. No, they have had times in the past where property ownership has been forgotten over time.
I saw somebody online. Factory. Who owns the factory and why? Nobody knows. Don't ask questions. They've sold it and rebought it, and Alia owned it at one point.
The big one, obviously, with this was the huge retcon they did after Betty died, and it turned out that Annie left Betty the Rovers in her will. Yeah, the Rovers wasn't Annie's to leave. So it didn't make sense at all. I saw somebody online posting before about, when Norris bought number 3 off Emily, apparently she agreed to that, but said, if you die before I do, then the house comes back to me. Well, Emily has outlived Norris, but is Emily actually the owner of number 3 now? No, the Baileys are.
Who did they buy that from?
I think it was Norris. So it didn't make sense.
Who gets Norris's cash? Can I get some of it?
Who cares?
I mean, Spider's left. He didn't tell us whether Emily was dead or alive.
No.
If the money reverted... if Norris died and Emily was still alive, I can't help but think he would have given her a lot for his money. Because they just had that relationship.
Do you reckon?
Who do you think he'd give it to?
I just think he'd be a bit more sneaky about it and hope that she was old and past it and forget it.
Well, who do you think is his next of kin then?
He ain't got one.
Well, then who gets the money?
Oh, yeah.
Rishi Sunak, typical.
Anyway, we're somewhat off track at the moment. Well, but basically, at the end of the day, it feels like it doesn't really make any difference.
I thought you were going to say it doesn't really matter, because that's really the end point of
No, it doesn't really make any difference whether Jenny owns the Rovers or whether the brewery does.
It doesn't really matter.
Sorry, Jenny. Sorry. But it's a bold move from Ian MacLeod, I suppose. Is it to say?
No, it just feels. Look, at this moment in time, it feels like another Alia got blown up in a van. Like I said, high stakes, low consequence.
It's led to a few good cliffhangers.
And what was that thing that they were saying about change? You have to change to stay the same or something, or stay the same. I don't know, but it just feels like that. It feels like the writers were giving us a tip off. It doesn't, honestly, anyway. But I'm not complaining because I don't want it to change. But what I do want is to have storylines where I'm genuinely concerned, or enthralled as to where it's going. I don't really mind where things go at the moment because I don't think they're going to go anywhere that exciting, but I'm enjoying watching it because I think everyone's doing, like, all of these stories this week. I really enjoyed this week. I thought it was great script, great performance. There's some really funny lines and scenes, but I'm just not worried that Rovers is going to close, or Jenny's going to leave, or someone else is going to be the landlord or the landlady.
That's the thing. When they raise the stakes and say this could be it for the Rovers, we could all be out of our jobs. It's like no, it won't.
It's like,
but I was still invested in. Is Henry going to be able to stop the Newton and Ridley buyout? Because I don't know whether Waterford was going to buy Newton and Ridley or whether Henry was going to swan in there and stop it happening. I honestly didn't know. So that was what was interesting me, but.
To give a real life analogy that means nothing to anybody except for me and you, it reminds me of when you get those letters from your insurance company and they're like, just to let you know that H&B, the insurance companies, has now been bought by B&S insurance companies, and from now on your administration is going to be out of Swindon instead of Slough. Nothing will change, but we just wanted to let you know. It's like, I don't care. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
It's all the same to me. I don't care.
Of course, Jenny will feel like she's been a bit of a failure. Mm-hmm. If something was mine, a property was mine, and then somebody came and bought it and said, you can still live there. It's not yours, it's mine. It would feel a little bit, what have I done something wrong? If somebody came and said, right, Michael and Gemma, you moved into this house 2 years ago and you're making a total arse up of it. We're going to buy it off of you. It's going to be our house. You can still live here.
Right.
I'd still be feeling like, I did something wrong. But if they gave me a massive wad of cash for it, I'm sure that would help me dry my tears a bit. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I've forgotten where we were now. So the deal's gone through. And Stephen was there holding Jenny's hand because he's wonderful. So later on, Ed's moping because the words get out about the houses. This brilliant deal with the planning permission and everything. Now everybody wants in on it, so they're being asked to give sealed bids. And Ronnie is secretly pleased at this point because it means there's hopefully going to be a bit more of a delay. So Bailey's and Debbie meet up in the pub again towards the end of the episode, and they say, they tell her about the sealed bids thing, and Debbie and Ronnie have some quiet whispers where she's like, look, I reckon that Newton and Ridley are going to be announcing their buyout pretty soon, and if not, it's fine. Just cut your losses, sell the shares. You haven't lost anything. All fine. Yeah.
Can I just say one thing about that? I realise I haven't really made clear about. I kind of have mentioned it, but this stuff about Jenny and the Rovers, I feel as though if we hadn't had, we're on month 9 now of this year, if we hadn't had 8 months where things built up to no consequence at all, I would be more worried about this. I feel like Coronation Street's made a rod for them back here trying to convince us that any of this means anything or has got any great consequence.
Yeah, I suppose
right from the beginning of the year, we've just had escalation and
stabbings, bombings, acidings.
So many things have happened, and it feels as though the status quo just returns almost immediately, and so it's a world devoid of
even in the factory, and there's been so much factory business and passing ownership and votes of no confidence and buyouts and shares and everything, and still is the factory any different?
I'm going to sell the factory. I'm not going to sell the factory. I hate you, Stephen. You're fired. No, you're back again. Nothing seems to change, but everything is always in a state of flux. And so when Coronation Street wants to tell me that I need to worry because the Rovers is going to be sold to a horrible company where people are allowed to run around with books of quotes, I can't help but think, in 2 weeks' time, we probably would have forgotten this even happened and everything will be back to normal. Yeah. If Coronation Street wants to prove that they're serious about consequences, I don't want them to start with the Rovers, though.
No, the Rovers is the one out of all the businesses on the street that it feels the most safe.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly every other business
could close and change.
A bold producer could say, I'm axing that, and that's what I'm going to go down as. The person who closed the cabin, the person who blew up the corner shop, but they wouldn't do it with the Rovers.
The only two businesses on Coronation Street that have been there since the very start are the corner shop and the Rovers. And out of those two, the Rovers is the only one that really has remained almost the same.
Mm.
You know, the corner shop's gone through loads of different looks and owners, and they change things, but even that's quite similar to the very beginning of Corrie.
Yeah, it's not as iconic a location as the Rovers.
It's not as iconic, but you know, yeah, like you say, they could blow up the corner shop. Mad Maya could come back and you know torch it, and they could just never open it again. And
the silly thing with everything is, a lot of the businesses, if not all of them, on the street at the moment, except perhaps the salon, which is the one that we see the least of, bizarrely, all of the other businesses in real life may well be shutting, because corner shops, paper shops, pubs, fabric factories, there aren't as many as them around now as there were 20, 30 plus years ago.
I mean, I don't know about these days, but I do remember that Mary Portas TV series that she did in the UK during the course of us doing this podcast, so within the last 11 years or so. She went to a knicker factory, and they were making a big deal. It was like, this is the last remaining underwear factory in the whole of England, and I don't know whether that's still open or not, but the fact that is such an anomaly. Anyway, I'll give up.
So
I just wanted to explain. I'm not being flippant. I care deeply about the character of Jenny and the Rovers, but I'm just saying that Coronation Street's made their bed here by removing consequences. And I've been saying it, and I know that I've been saying it, and everyone's sick and tired of me saying it and hearing me saying it.
So stop saying it.
That's why I'm going to.
Guess what happened at the end of the episode?
Stephen
and Jenny had a snoggeroo in the back room. She says, "Oh, Jenny, you've done such a brilliant job over the last 5 years. Isn't it time that you stepped back, though, and thought about what you want? I'm hoping it's right in front of your eyes." And it wasn't all.
It's my Willie. What is their shipping name? Steve. Stenny.
Stenny. Yeah.
Or Jennifer.
No, I don't.
Jennifer?
No. I don't think they've got one, so it's
what about
doomed.
Reed and Connor?
No. Connor Reed.
I like Stenny.
Tim's nickname.
Stenny will do.
They go up to the bedroom by the end of the episode because she doesn't wait, does she, Jenny?
She's like, life's too short, there's no consequences, I can't get pregnant, go upstairs.
Friday, Ronnie is reading about the Newton and Ridley Salah in the paper.
Well, that would be a twist, wouldn't it?
What?
Consequences arrive in the form of a baby Reed Connor.
Just imagine.
Why not?
Just imagine that.
I'd be up for that.
I don't know whether I'd enjoy that story.
How old was Erica when she was telling Nick that she was up the duff?
She was about 50.
Well.
Yeah, okay. Could happen.
Oh,
right, so the Newton and Ridley Salah. Sorry, this is wrong. I got confused a bit about this at the beginning of Friday's episode as well, because the news about what was going on with the brewery was kind of being drip fed to the public through the day, wasn't it? And the news that was in the paper at the beginning is that Philip, the CEO of Newton and Ridley, aka Henry's dad, has stepped down. But the buyout from the Waterford group hadn't come out. No. Is this how it works? Why wouldn't that have come out at the same time?
How would you know? When was the last time you paid attention to business?
Never. So anyway, Ronnie's trying to hide this information from Ed, who's pretty easy to do that because he's more interested in whittering on about this sealed bid thing that they need to do by 4:00 this afternoon. He goes off, Debbie comes in, and she's like, "Sorry about this, Ronnie, but Newton and Ridley shares have plummeted through the floor. Not my fault, nobody forced you to buy them. We just better hope that this Waterford deal goes through quickly." And I thought this was a great stakes to raise at the beginning of the episode, because it felt like the progression of the storyline was quite neat. And at the very end of the episode, everyone was celebrating. But I was literally, I didn't know where this was going to go throughout all of this today. So I enjoyed that this was kind of dropped on us at the beginning of the episode, you know? Mm-hmm. So, Stephen and Jenny, meanwhile, after their night of passion, mad passionate lust, are all loved up coming out of the pub, and she's like, oh, Stephen, I want to organise a little trip away with you. And he says, well, you know, I got to be careful with the old money. And she's like, don't worry, I'm rolling in it now. And then this is when Tim comes out of his troll hole and says, Stephen, you evil guy, what you did to my mum. And Jenny says, don't worry about this. Phrase of doom, everybody. From now on, everything's going to be all right with us.
Yay!
Mere seconds after she uttered these immortal words, Gemma comes blustering out of the cabin with the newspaper headline saying Philip has quit as CEO of Rovers. And they're like, oh, crikey. Newton and Ridley, sorry. Oh, crikey. What does that mean for us at the Rovers? So, Ronnie is still trying to slow Ed down with this whole sale thing because Ed's just like, we got to do it.
I respect Ed here. This is what I'm like. If I want to buy something, I want to do it then. Now, let's go buy it. What are we waiting for? There's no point waiting. Someone's going to buy it instead of me. I don't want that to happen. Let's buy it
now. And Ronnie tries to say, oh, you know, maybe we're biting off more than we can chew here. It's like, no way. We do it. We're doing it. We're going to get this. I can sense everything's going to be great for us as well. So then we get a return from Henry. Hooray! It's been like...
He's been conspicuous.
He has been very conspicuously absent in the last fortnight or so. Didn't even get to see Gemma doing any more PA. I
wonder what they've been doing, those two. That doesn't work.
He comes flapping into the pub later. I was wondering, back when this deal was announced a couple of weeks ago, how much does Henry know about this? Is it being done underneath without any kind of... without any discussion about it, and it turns out that it's true. He's like, I've heard about this deal. I can't. This is the first I've heard of it. This is news to me as well. I can't say whether the Rovers deal's going to be going through. Sorry, I'm in the dark as much as you are. But he gets a phone from his dad, so he kind of scurries away out into the smoking area or something to go and have a word with him. And Ronnie is in the pub at this point as well, so he's listening in because this is quite pertinent to his interests this week. Henry comes to the bar later. Sad times, Gemma.
What's happened?
It's true.
Oh.
His dad's bogged off. Uncertainty, restructuring, possible redundancies. Who knows what's going to happen now? Everyone's a panic. What's this going to mean for us? He doesn't know. But I'm going to go to an emergency board meeting later to try and stop this deal happening.
But you can't follow me. And what? I'm not taking my assistant.
No. Gemma, my PA, you're not allowed to come along with this because it's me that's got to do the announcement later on today. So he goes to his car, followed in hot pursuit by Ronnie, who says, you don't know me, but I think that you should definitely not stop this buyout from happening because it could be brilliant. And Henry's like, who are you?
He's like, Waterford are great.
Yeah.
And then Henry says, what? How do you know it's Waterford?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was, wasn't it? Yeah. Ronnie drops himself right in it, but manages to squiggle his way out of it very sneakily. And I am still wondering whether this is going to come and bite him in the bum.
Well, he's saying, everybody knows it's the word on the street.
Yeah.
But it's going to become very suspicious when it turns out that he bought shares. And he's also telling Henry something that is supposed to be secret information. Yeah,
by the end of the episode, Ronnie and Ed are celebrating like we've done it. We're never possibly going to be caught at this point. But I don't know what there is to... Is there anything for Henry to gain by this? I don't know. But, I wouldn't be celebrating quite so soon, Ronnie. Anyway, Henry says that... Yeah, I've not announced that it's Waterford. Nobody knows it's Waterford. How do you know? Ronnie says it's just a guess. And he says, well, you've just confirmed that it is Waterford, haven't you? And Henry's like, oh, you curses, you got me.
It is a classic soap thing to be like, blah, blah, blah. How did you know it was blah, blah, blah? You just told me.
Yes, it was basically that, wasn't it? So, Ronnie and Debbie... go for a hushed whispers chat in the pub again, and he's like, this is too stressful, I need to tell Ed. And she's like, don't tell Ed, Everyone's going to turn on you for blowing Ed's money. Honestly, ride it out. It's going to be fine. Then Stephen... Oh, this is when we see Stephen getting thrown out of Red Bank by Tim. And then he hears the brewery news, and then they might all be soon out of jobs. That's not really important. Ronnie goes up to Ed's office, which is the first time we've seen that for a very, very long time. The builder's office, nice. And Ed's like, I've been jumping the gun all week with everything and doing things without telling you, but just dropping it on you for maximum dramatic impact.
Guess what?
I've only gone and done it again. I've put the bid in, mate. I've done it. Yay. I've put in my sale bid. And Ronnie's like, you blithering idiot, Ronnie. Ed, sorry. Now I've got to confess all about my nefarious insider tradery. I've bought Newton and Ridley shares, and now they're pretty much worthless. Sorry.
We got really confused about this because I was listening back to the podcast from last week, and we were saying that Ed was basically giving Ronnie
tacit permission to do
it, but that's obviously not what he thought was happening.
No, even though they discussed it, he was just completely naively
trusting.
Yeah, trusting.
Never trust your brother to not buy shares. So I always say, it's one of my quotes in my book.
Basically, what this will mean, Ronnie says, is that if we end up buying this because our bid is successful, we're not going to have any money to actually do anything on it. We're just going to... What they say, we're not going to be able to do anything apart from play football.
If only we knew someone who played football.
Only we knew somebody in the family who played football.
I was insulted by this because I'd love a field.
Would you?
Yeah, I want a field. I want to go camping on my own field so I can have a fire pit and I don't have to pay £20 a night.
Well, you suggest that to them then. Ed is massively ashamed of Ronnie. Site. Heads off home, and then Henry comes to the pub later. Post boardroom meeting, no good. He hadn't been able to stop it happening. He said they still treated me like a kid. They've known me since I was little, and I didn't have really any sway in it. So
he likened himself to Kendall Roy.
Happens, yeah, and I didn't know who that was, but apparently somebody from Succession, I've heard. So they're gonna get a visit from Lydia from the Waterford group at some point in the next 6 weeks, and Lydia Flint, and she
sounds like a Agatha Christie character.
She sounds like she's a character of the Flintstones, I think. Lydia Flint. Do you think? No? Maybe? Okay. So he says, look, Henry's like mega depressed about this. I don't blame him. Literally.
Well, he knows he's useless, honestly. He's only got his job because of nepotism. Nobody trusted him enough, even his dad, to tell him this was going on. So he's clearly not as important to the workings of Newton and Ridley as he thought he was.
I feel mad on Henry's behalf.
Yeah, I do as well. But he can hire a woman to walk around after him with a flamingo pen, and nobody cares because what's she going to write down? That Henry Newton needs to know? Nothing.
It doesn't mean
that... So he's going to get fired because his dad's retired. His dad's gone, and everyone's going to be like, so what do you do around here? And Henry Newton's going to say, well, I'm like the fun face of the company for if you want an Uber-Duber.
From what we saw from when he was in it a few weeks ago, he does seem to have...
He seems to have reformed somewhat.
He seems to understand maths a little bit more now than he did 5 years ago. And also, we hear from Lydia later that they don't like to rock the boat too much, so they might want to keep Henry in. But if I was him, I'd definitely be worried about my job. But at the end of the day, he hasn't lost out on the Newton and Ridley fortune, has he? Because Phillips just walked away with a massive paycheck, and as far as Henry knows, he's still, going to inherit that.
I'm surprised that Henry doesn't have shares in the business, considering he's part of You think that they would all have shares?
I don't know enough about shares.
Well, I've got shares in my family business.
So this is where I've lost where I am now. Jenny's trying to put a positive spin on the whole thing.
Well, Henry's like, I hope I keep my job and I'll keep you on as a PA, Gemma.
Yeah. So Ronnie goes round number 3 to try and apologise to Ed after the confession earlier, and says, look, I'm gonna try and get the money back. If we lose the sale, honestly, I'm gonna do the best I can. And Ed's like, fine, come on, have a chat with me. And Ed's like, he's not going to back down. He says, you just want me to tell you that it's fine what you've done, but it bloody well isn't.
No, I'm very cross.
But fortunately, this is when Debbie comes round. now Waterford have been announced as the owners of Newton and Ridley, and hurrah, the share prices are rocketing. You're going to be sitting on a little gold mine before you know it.
Hooray.
Hooray.
And this is when Ed's gambling streak gets woken like a dragon.
Yeah.
Because he starts saying, oh, we could... Ronnie's saying, let's sell now. And Ed's like, oh, what if we wait for a day? What if we wait for a week? We could be millionaires. And Ronnie's like, cut our losses. You know, well, not cut our losses, but quit where we're ahead.
Yeah,
and that was a good trick. But not if you're a gambler. You don't know that one.
No, I thought it was quite clever how they've brought Ed's gambling back into this. It was the cliffhanger at the end of today's episode, right at the end, wasn't it? When he's looking at the racing pages and he's like, oh, shall I?
No.
Anyway, so Lydia Flint does come to the pub later. They're obviously moving quickly there. Sean swooshes out the back to get Jenny, and they start to make out like they're going to get rebranded and have to put in uniforms and everything. But after Jenny's finished giving her the tour later, she's like, well, we're going to pretty much keep things as much as they are, because, you know, that's what we do here in Coronation Street. Apart from maybe the odd quote on a chalkboard. I like that little thing that they had about her and her quotes, because then they went off and they had a few little scenes of Daisy and Sean reading inspirational quotes to each other, and it was completely unnecessary to the plot, but I liked it as a little extra thing that they added for her.
Yeah, I really...
That's the sort of thing I like, you know.
It's one of these unnecessary character flourishes that make characters... It kind of reminds me of the Donkey Sanctuary lady, where we really didn't... This character's completely superfluous, but I guess that this Lydia Flint is going to... I just feel like she's going to spend the next week following them around and giving quotes about what they're doing, which I'm kind of looking forward to, but it also could be a bit cringy.
I hope, as far as me, she might not even come back again. But
maybe.
If they want to go down that route,
well,
that could be
what are they
fun.
going to? What's the point of having her there? Because she's come to say, I'm just here to sort of see what the brewery's bought, really.
Yeah. Yeah, and to say that we're going to keep it on everything as it is.
If I was her, do you know what I'd say?
What?
Right, number one, I'd say, why have you got that cabinet at the back there that says chilled wines that you've never opened in 30 years? I'd say, why have you got these two hot plates under a lamp that you claim has got hot pot in it, but all the hot pots are cooked individually in the oven? What is in these little vats? Get rid of those.
Good question.
And I'd say, why are we renting space from Ken Barlow to go to the toilet?
Well, she managed to overlook all of those very important issues.
Yeah.
Clearly you need to go after her job. Anyway, that was basically it. Jenny's telling Stephen that she can move in with her at the end of the episode and into the B&B room, although she does say, oh, you know, well, maybe you hope you don't come padding across the landing at night. Yeah.
Oh, we know what that looks like. You hear this? You can still hear the haunting screams of Daisy and Ryan at a certain time of night.
Yes.
Is that the screams? No, it's Jenny and Stephen.
Oh gosh. Anyway, so that was that. I've got a frog in my throat today. Excuse me.
Please feel free to go and have a drink.
No, I'll be all right. Maybe after this story. So I was kind of throughout the week thinking, is Stephen going to end up buying the Rovers? But as things are left stood at the moment, everything's kind of solved.
This is Coronation Street. Nothing's ever solved.
Stephen's got this £70,000 or share of £70,000 that he's not using at the moment.
This £70,000 feels to me like it's going to be the key.
It feels like it's earmarked for the Rovers to me, but it doesn't need to.
Well, what if Lydia turns around and says, I don't think this is a very good investment for Newton and Ridley / Waterford. We're going to have to renege on the sale because it's not valid anymore because there's a cooling off period. You didn't read the fine print. So we're going to have to ask you to pay the money back, and then Jenny's not going to have it, and then Stephen's going to white knight in with his 70k, and then they'll have enough, and he'll be like, don't worry, we'll be partners. And then also we've got Michael with this 70k and his dad looking at the racing like it's Tim looking at a hot pot. You know, he's going to be in debt pretty soon. Is he going to take all of the money that they've just got and gamble it away? Probably.
Yeah, maybe.
Carla's got this money, and I don't know whether she's gonna.
Well, she's giving it to Lou. We've already seen her give some.
Well, she's given 70k and 15 grand don't add up, do they?
No, well, I don't know.
And then you've got Sarah, who's also going to get some of it. I don't know what she's going to spend that on.
I don't know either. I'm sure they'll think of something.
But you know what I mean? It feels like everybody's getting money, and there's at least 2 people here who are going to use it for plot purposes.
Yeah, I just want to fast forward to 6 months and find out what the status of the Rovers will be at that point. I'm still just ever so slightly concerned that Jenny's going to be given the heave ho.
No,
but I don't clearly don't.
If she does, I'm gonna get really mad. Yeah. There are a few things that I demand from Coronation Street.
And one of them is Jenny's permanent residency
Jenny as
at the
landlady.
Rovers return. Okay.
You don't need to change the landlady and landlord as much as they have over the past 11 years. We've been doing the podcast that long, and there have been so many new landlords and landladies. You just don't need to do it.
No, keep her on. I would also like to say about this story today that I very much enjoyed, not just having Henry in it, and I think the idea that we're going to get Henry's old personality back, clearly that's gone, that ship has sailed. But I did enjoy having lots of Henry scenes. I thought that
there weren't lots.
Him being,
there should have been more.
Oh no, there's more than there's been for a while. And him being very honourable and wanting to keep the family business and everything was lovely. I loved it when he caught Ronnie out and when Ronnie mentioned the Waterford. So I was very, very pleased with what happened with Henry today. And yeah, a little bit concerned about his future. It could be quite interesting if he did end up, losing everything and becoming just a pleb like everybody else. That could be an interesting little avenue for him to go down.
Pulp song.
A common person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I thought that was quite fun. Gemma, it's time for you to do the pool story.
I will do that if you want.
Yes, it is your turn. Go for it.
I don't know if you want to stop. And
No, it's fine.
I was trying to lead you in so you can.
No, I'm okay.
In a subtle way, but no, this isn't professional radio. On Monday, Billy tries to apologise to Paul for what he said last night about how if he weren't gonna die, he'd be dumped. So what a tragedy for Paul. It's certain death or not being able to go out with Billy.
Tell you what, I'm glad that they didn't stick with this. They're clearly going to end up together. This wedding is going to go ahead. Yeah, but it looked at the end of last Friday's episode that they're going to be splitting up again, and then we'd probably have a week of them making up, or poor Billy putting his foot in it again. But luckily, they didn't go down that route.
Well, Paul doesn't want to hear it, and it gets very awkward. Billy tells him that the stair lift's ready to be picked up. And he says, I don't want to push you into doing anything you don't want to do, or it might take away your independence. And Paul says, it's fine. I'm going to see Shelley. So he goes to see Shelley, who is the fellow MND sufferer who's a bit, well, she's in a wheelchair, isn't she? And she's got a feeding tube in her nose. And Paul's talking to her about he feels like people are suffocating him. And she's like, change the record, You've got all these people that you're moaning on that care about you. And I'm here, I haven't got anybody.
They didn't cast anyone to be my family.
No. The people they
I'm only supporting character. They don't give us relatives or backstories or people.
People that they cast to be my PAs were non-speaking extras. Yeah. So she's getting annoyed about Paul minging on about it, and she says, look, nobody wants a wheelchair, nobody wants a chairlift, but you've got to get on with it and get it sorted out. So when Paul goes back home, he says, I want to spend the rest of the day with you, and I want to live... But Billy, I want to live life while I've got it, and I want to do stuff. So they go to skinny dip in a lake.
Well, the plan wasn't to skinny dip, was it?
I don't know what the plan was.
Maybe it was there in the back of Paul's head all along. Maybe it was something on his bucket list.
It doesn't feel like a particularly adventurous thing to do, but if that's what Paul wants to do, then fine.
Well, it was nice. It is very adventurous for Corrie to go and film on location. Maybe that was what Paul was saying. I'm going to go on an adventure. I'm going to take a risk here.
I don't care about the budget. I'm going to a lake.
I thought it was a lovely little scene when they were sitting down next to each other.
They go to the jetty. They sit on the bench, and Billy says, I want to talk to you properly about what happened yesterday. What you heard me say was true, because I would have dumped you, but I also think that we'd have found our way back to each other eventually. And Paul's like, yeah, that is how the show goes. You're right. So they kiss, they hold hands, and before long, Paul wants a skinny dip, and Billy's nervous. Billy's like, well, it's not like I'm a vicar. I can do whatever
Billy's
I
like,
want.
it was like a little schoolgirl. Wasn't like, oh no, oh we couldn't possibly. That's very naughty and racist.
Skinny dip. If you're a schoolgirl, especially not with a middle-aged man. They go and have a saucy swim, and Paul says we should book our wedding. They looked really happy, didn't they? They were just... Paul was relaxing. I bet it was nice for him to feel that he wasn't restricted in his body. He's just floating.
Yeah. It was a nice scene. It was like, I was kind of thinking, it's probably a bit awkward to film. They did a behind the scenes for this, didn't they, with Dan and Peter, and they said that they were putting their skin coloured body stockings on. But even with that, it'd be, you got to be a proper actor just to say, yeah, whatever, just hold me tight underwater.
That's why they get danger money.
There were definitely nipples on display there, Gemma. I'm going to say.
It's terrible. I'm going to tell Ofcom.
Also, Weil's disease. Got to be careful with that.
What's Weil's disease?
Weil's disease, that's what you get from dirty lakes.
Oh, I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
I've never heard of it.
It comes from, like, rats pooing in lakes and stuff. Quite bad.
Rats don't poo in lakes.
So I hope they cleaned it out.
That's disgusting.
Anyway.
They probably drained it for the celebrities and then washed it out and then refilled it with spring water. So they go back home later. The stair lifts in. They start looking for register officers. And Paul says, oh, it's sad we can't get married in the church. And Billy says, I listened to Conversation Street last week and I've decided that my only comment is going to be, God will be there wherever we get married. What about the bistro?
No, Paul says the bistro, doesn't he? Yeah.
Well, Paul's like,
he's had his one adventurous idea of the day, which was just jumping naked into a lake. So he has to rein it in a little bit when it comes to wedding venues. Yeah,
so this seems to be the only comment we're going to get about Billy and the church, but we're not going to talk about it. He seems
like, he's really not that fussed. I would still hope that they'll get a blessing.
It does feel a bit like Billy's like, it's not a real wedding, you're going to die soon, I don't care. I'll do my proper wedding.
They're going to have to have
I know it's not what he really thinks, but it just feels like he's been really laissez-faire about it.
I would hope that that Billy would believe that they're not properly married until they've had some kind of blessing or something
from the church.
I don't know. So I think that they'll probably
I don't think we're going to get what we want out of this show.
Do you think it really will be at the bistro? That's just like so unadventurous, isn't it? It's like just another. This is the first gay wedding on Coronation Street, and if it's at the bistro,
but then again, Emma and Evil Man's. That they had a really nice decoration.
They are, but it's still the bistro in the back of my head. I want them to. I want them to go big.
Fizz and Phil with 2 L's had a really nice marquee.
Yeah, they need something like that.
They do. They need something outside, or I don't. Well, everything we're saying here, we've already discussed at great length last episode.
Well, it's too late, isn't it? Because we find out on Wednesday's episode that the wedding's booked for, 4 weeks' time? So it's all filmed and everything now, so nothing we can do about it.
On Wednesday, it's Summer's birthday.
Happy birthday, Summer.
They have a classic Corrie fake out, and Billy and Paul say, here's your real presents. It's a book and a journal. She's like, I thought that was a joke.
Yeah, they haven't got any cash at the moment, have they?
Sorry, we can't afford much right now. We just bought a stair lift and we're getting married. So she says, well, I wish I had a laptop, but...
If you wish hard enough, Summer, maybe a laptop will magically appear in your hands by the end of the episode. They said,
if you want money, why didn't you come up with an idea for a t-shirt? Paul says, I'm going to go see Shelley again. She's feeling a bit poorly and we'll do some wedding planning when I get back. So Paul goes to see Bernie, his mum, and says, I can't buy Summer a laptop. And Bernie says, I don't care.
They really did lay it on thick, didn't they? With Summer wants a laptop. Oh, we can't get Summer a laptop. Oh, wouldn't it be nice if Summer could have a laptop? Hello, Shelley. What's that delivery that's just come through the post?
You won't believe this.
Job load of laptops.
I've got a load of laptops. What are the chances of that? I've just spontaneously bought laptops.
They're so clunky.
I'm always doing it though. I can't resist them. I see them in the catalogues and I'm like, oh, I wonder how much RAM.
Shelley's got a case of the old homeless stews, hasn't she? She's a bit.
She's coughing. Yeah. I thought you were going to say she's got a case of the old Ginas.
Oh,
next thing you know, she'll be buying dog plates.
Yeah, I was wondering whether. Well, you said actually before
I say a lot of things.
You said, oh, well, Bernie's not going to like seeing Shelley, especially if she's...
That's what I thought.
If she's, looking like she's
I thought the point of this
day.
scene was going to be Bernie seeing somebody a bit further on in MND than Paul is and thinking, this is the future for my son. And she's not
Bernie seems pretty unfazed by the whole
Bernie
thing,
didn't care. This wasn't the point of the scene. The point of the scene was, let's change the story from MND to credit card fraud. Because why not?
Yeah, tangent of the week.
Yeah. So, Shelley's coffee and Bernie's trying to help her, and there's a load of parcels get delivered, and like you said, it's a load of laptops because she used to work for a company that seems to be a mail order company, and she got laid off when she got sick, and so she wants to stick it to them by getting a credit card and just buying as much as she can because she's going to die, and then they can't force her to pay it back because she doesn't have anybody. Well, your personal debts are your own, so when you die, nobody else is responsible. She's like, I'll be dead, so it doesn't matter. And Bernie's like, brilliant, this is great. And she says, Shelley's like saying, I was brilliant, I was a great worker, and they didn't care about me. As soon as I got diagnosed, I got dumped, so I don't care about them. Would you like me to buy you anything? And Paul's like, I don't know. No, I don't agree with it. I'd be like, yeah, a wedding. If you got a wedding, can you buy me a wedding?
Catalogue wedding.
Yeah. So, Billy and Summer are in the middle of recording a video. This was a bit cringy, I thought.
Yeah.
They're filming a video.
Also with a nice ring light. Do you think they borrowed it off Daniel?
Probably.
Not Daniel, sorry, Ryan.
Ryan. And also, Summer seemed to be doing sign language.
Did she? I missed that.
But it must be for Alad.
I don't.
But is Alad going to buy them a wedding gift?
I didn't see that at all.
I don't know, but they were just recording a video to get everybody to come to this wedding in 4 weeks, 5 weeks. But Paul disturbs it, and I thought this was a bit weird too. They hear him coming on the stair lift, and there was this really tortured, laborious sound of mechanical whirring that accompanied Paul's arrival, and it makes me think that that's going to be an important plot point at some point. What, that stair lifts are noisy? Like,
Stephen Reed tries to sneak into the flat and he's like, I'll just take the stair lift.
I don't want to creak on the floorboard.
Yeah. Curse you.
Right, so he comes in and they give up on the video, but he tells Summer, I've got you a present. Here's the laptop you wanted. It's my friend Shelley's old one. She didn't want it anymore because she's got one of these voice activated ones now. And someone's like, brilliant, no questions.
Yeah, she completely believes that there's a brand new laptop that she's got.
There's no box, there's no mouse. It came in a drawstring bag. It looked like you were given it outside the train station. Bernie returns to Shelley's flat later.
Kids don't know about laptops these days, do they? They only know about iPads.
She's like, where's the touchscreen? Bernie goes back to Shelley's flat.
Does have a laptop. Most laptops do have touchscreens now, Dylan.
I don't know, do I? Because I don't own one, do I?
You do not. Bernie
comes back to Shelley's flat and says, you know what you said about... Oh, because Shelley had said, I used to... All my PA, which is what she calls the carers, used to sell this stuff on for me and not ask any questions. It was a neighbour, but now her neighbours can't do it anymore, so she's got stuck with all these laptops and she doesn't know how to sell them. So Bernie comes back and goes, listen, I can help you out, but don't tell Paul. Me and Big Garth can expand your business at the market. And Shelley's like, great.
I was worried that they'd gone a bit Fat Brenda on Big Garth this week, because it was only in today's episode that he was called Big Garth, and Bernie was just calling him Garth, and he was Garth this, Garth that, for a couple of times he was mentioned. I'm like, they're not even allowed to call Big Garth Big anymore. Well, but they did Bernie use it to great comedic effect on Friday, so...
That he's tall.
Yes, he is. That's the only reason why he's only tall.
He's very horizontally tall.
Yes.
On Friday, Paul tells Bernie he's off to see Shelley again, and does she want to come because Shelley said that she wanted to talk to you. And Bernie's like...
She's got other stuff to do, hasn't she? She's got to go sorting things with Big Garth today. She
calls Garth up and says, I need to meet up, I've got some gear that needs shifting. So Bernie and Dev ask her, do you want to do something later? And she says, I'm seeing a mate, sorry. Then he sees this message come up from Garth, and Big Garth, and he suspects an affair, because it says, looking forward to seeing you tonight. Can't wait to sample the goods. Promise I will sort you out. Kiss, kiss. winky face.
It was all very silly, but I think that Jimmy Harkison did as good a job as I would expect from him, which is very good at being mortally offended and suspicious about this guy's nickname. He's like,
why is he called Big Garth?
Why is he called Big Garth?
So Bernie's like, Dad's a load of old rubbish. Big Garth is married to Little G, and I'm doing a scam. So Tim walks in and interrupts the scene to talk about cauliflower, which is just typical for him. Bernie continues to explain to Dev when he's gone, and Dev's like, no, this is fraud. It's and Bernie's like, no, we're sticking it to the man. And he says, no, I'm the sort of man you're sticking it to, businessman. And they part on bad terms, but then he comes back grovelling to her with flowers and says, I just don't think you should lie to Paul. And now I'm an accessory to this crime. What if you go to prison and Paul dies while you're inside? And she says, I want to get Paul what he needs. And he says, all right then.
Very well described, Gemma. How did you find this story this week?
This was this is one of those things where I cannot condone criminal activity. But if I was Shelley, I can't see what yeah, great, max your cards out. Do that anyway, and I'm not even dying.
You were hoping that Paul would get the laptop? Would you have got one if it was?
If Shelley said to me, I've got literally unlimited budget, what would you like me to buy you? I'd say, if you're buying me a present, love, here's my Santa's list.
I don't think I would. I'm too good. I'd have said no. I'd have been too high and mighty about it.
Is it real? I guess it is a crime. It's like insider trading last week. We're like, is it really a crime? Google it. It is a crime.
Of course
so
it is.
I get very confused. This is, I'm always saying this on Corrie, like with coercive control stuff and the grooming things and stuff. If it gets too abstract, I just can't understand how anyone could ever prove it.
I think it's fairly obvious.
I mean, Shelley sat there and went, I'm doing this. I don't understand why this company is like, yes, it's perfectly normal to buy 50 laptops.
That's very true.
They're asking for trouble.
I thought
this is probably what happens. On like iPad, new iPad or iPhone release day, and you go to one of those second-hand computer shops, and all these people are coming in selling iPads, and you're like, what's
going on there?
They're all on MND scams.
I don't mind that the story's going this way particularly, but it does seem like another little tangent that takes us away from the really human and tragic story that this poor guy is dying of MND long before his time, and it feels a bit like, how are we going to fill the time between now
There's drama
and
enough.
that, and not just have him deteriorating? Let's have this extra bit.
It's like, tell you what the problem is. It's that when like all the ideas seem like they come when you go into like the supermarkets and you get to the magazine section, and they've got all the soap magazines, but they're also next to like the really like crappy gossip, like real life story magazines. And the writers are like, yeah, that's my story there. That is, yeah, Toya and Spider having a kidnapping. And I'll look over there. I've got MND and a shopping addiction, and I'm also committing credit card fraud. Now that's a good idea for a story.
Yeah.
I married my husband's ghost. Now that's a good story for Billy in a year's time. It's just so outrageous and like convoluted.
Yeah. I think the only reason that I'm not particularly minding this is because I do like Shelley.
I like Bernie. I like Shelley. Bernie and Shelley together. Imagine if Shelley wasn't sick. Their world would be in so much trouble. Those two are a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, it's definitely in
Bernie's
character to go along with this.
One thing Corrie's doing at the moment, I think, that we've criticised them in the past for not doing so well, is maintaining character.
Yeah, in this case, yeah.
In quite a lot of cases, I think. I feel like we're getting fewer examples of characters bending their... Maybe there's a few, examples if I thought a bit harder, but on the whole, I think everybody's...
generally acting as they would. Well, that's good.
Well, I think sometimes we forget to praise things that are being done well, or when something's not glaring you in the face, you kind of don't think to mention it.
Do you think that the end there's going to be a moral at the end where Bernie does get caught? This is the thing. Like, I don't think Corrie can condone this happening by showing that they completely get away with it.
I mean, Paul, I can't see how Paul's going to get dragged into this unless he does something terrible.
Well, he doesn't know that his mum's...
He doesn't know what Bernie's up to.
In on it with Shelley.
Bernie and Shelley are not going to drop him a minute and say that he knew that the laptops were gay, you know. I mean, the thing is, though, she hasn't stolen... Has she stolen something? I don't even know. There must be some law whereby if you don't think you're going to pay it back...
Yeah.
But then, you know, certain people quite high up... I was just
really hoping that I'd keep on going for a bit longer.
Certain people who have got quite high up in political office have also done things where they buy stuff and they don't have any intention of paying for it. Yeah, I think we can all think of who I'm talking about.
I think Bernie...
And the fact is, there's more than one person that I could be talking about. And that should worry everybody.
I think Bernie probably will end up getting... in trouble because of this, but I don't think that Corrie would be so cruel as to have her not be able to go to her son's wedding. Don't know. So I think she is going to be there, but there may well be drama around like, she's been arrested. She's been arrested the day before the wedding. What's going to happen? Maybe
Craigie will discover it.
Were you surprised to hear that the wedding is happening quite so soon?
No.
4 or 5 weeks.
Why wait? People have got married in about the same amount of time without one of them having a terminal diagnosis.
Yeah, I suppose they haven't. Coronation's due. I'm thinking that it might line up nicely with Super Soap Week because 4 or 5 weeks' time is the first, second week of October, isn't it? And I think that maybe that combined with something going on with Stephen is going to be a fairly big week. But
you know what that is, don't you?
What?
Simon Gregson's birthday.
It is, yeah.
Beginning of October.
So it'll be a bit like with Gemma's wedding on the Britain's Got Talent week. And having this wedding as a Super Soap.
That was such a great set of scenes.
Yeah. Okay, so the Papa Dom storyline. I quite like that.
This is you, right?
This is me, yeah. The Paul story was fine, but...
I was intrigued by the fact that Yasmin's going to... I don't know how to say it now.
Pakistan.
Pakistan.
The main bit, the only bit, the biggest bit of this story that I found interesting and compelling this week was Yasmin's story about her mum and her estranged family. I think that actually that isn't anything to do with what this story is. It was just a way of saying, oh, Eliza, you don't want to be estranged from your dad or whatever.
I think it was, you're right.
But yeah, the Yasmin bit was the best.
We've had some like really small little breadcrumbs about Yasmin's history because we know that she married Sharif without her family's permission and that they looked down on him and thought he was lower class. There's been no indication about, you know, castes or religion or whatever about that kind of cultural background, but we do know that she kind of had to defy her family, and then she's talking to Eliza and saying, oh, there's nobody left in Pakistan for me, my family's...
I would absolutely love this if this turned into a story about Yasmin rediscovering her roots and mating up with estranged family members and stuff, but I don't feel that it's going to go that way.
If you really need that, you can just watch the episode of Who Do You Think You Are, whatever it was.
Oh yeah,
Shelley
the DNA episode.
When she went, because she was great in that. She had a very similar... I think that this is obvious. It feels obviously based on some elements of Shelley King's
real-life
biographical background, because she had a lot to say and she is very moving, her story about her roots. And if you're interested in Shelley King and Yasmin, and I definitely recommend you look. I don't even know what the show's called though, so what a great recommendation from me.
Just search Corrie DNA, you'll find it.
Yeah.
So what happened this week with the Stu story? Well, he's getting a bit nervous on Monday because there's a mediation meeting with Dom, and it's all going to be about, you know, who's going to have custody of Eliza, how much time do you get with her, how much time do I get with her. You can probably have her for more if you want, because she's gotten a bit of a stroppy teenager about her at the moment. When Eliza came into the programme a year ago, I really enjoyed her because it felt like she was a very nicely behaved, polite, piano-playing young girl, and now she has just gone down the typical stroppy teen route, and it's
I think that happens to all of them.
Yeah, but she just unfortunately, currently, she is just exactly the same as any old teenage girl in Corrie that has a moan at their parent and then storms upstairs. I'm not getting very much individuality about her character, unfortunately. She's just into that generic stroppy teen trope, don't you think? Which I thought there was more about her than that last year. I don't know. Anyway, so she gets into a strop on Monday because Stu suggested that she go and help out Yasmin in speed dial, and she didn't want to, so she goes and sees Sam instead. Sam's is very infrequent in his appearances at the moment, isn't he?
Yes.
Like, he's coming to scenes every now and then, but well,
he hasn't had a storyline for a long time.
No, and I think that the story that was brewing between, it was like the mini love triangle, wasn't it, with him and Hope and Eliza, that had a lot of promise, but they just, I mean, I guess it's to do with how much the kids can be on screen, but that would have been really good. Anyway, so Yasmin finds out that Zidane is offering to take her to Pakistan for her 70th birthday, but she says, "Oh, there's so much drama going on here. I don't know whether now is the time." And Stu says, "No, everything's going to be great. You go off to Pakistan. It's going to be fine." So he goes off to his mediation. We don't get to see that meeting either. But apparently it didn't go so well for Stu, and it's looking like Dom might get custody. And speak of the devil, in walks Dom into the lawyer's office, and he's like, "Stu, this isn't going well, is it?
What's your
problem? I don't
problem?
want you to take this to court. This could end up very, very expensive. Can we just sort this out ourselves?" And Stu's like, "No way, I'll see you in court, man." So he gets home and immediately gets an earful from Eliza about wanting a tablet back. He's like, "No, you can't have that. You don't deserve it." And Yasmin's like, "Oh, I can see you're in a bit of a mardy mood, Stu. Mediation not go so well, did it? Maybe don't take it out on your granddaughter, though." Later on in the episode, things are calmed down and Zidane calls again, and Yasmin says, "No, I'm not going to answer it. Stu, I think..." Stu says to her, "Look, just go on the trip with Zidane. It's fine. You're not needed in this story. This is a
Yasmin story. This is a Stu story.
This is an Eliza and Stu story.
And
actually,
Dom.
Thank you very much." But
everyone's favourite new dad.
He's like, "No, go and do it. It's fine. Go and see your mum's grave. It'll be great. Go and check that she's actually dead. Evelyn didn't go and see Cassie's grave, and look at all the problems that's causing now."
We were talking about who's going to pull a Cindy Beale.
Yeah,
Yasmin's mum. Cassie all the time. Cassie already did a Cindy Beale. Instead, it's just copying Coronation Street. Except they're cheating by using better characters.
That is quite true. That's fairly obvious now you come to think of it. But I suppose that's not exactly the same because it's not a character that we had met before.
Yeah, shut up.
So, Wednesday, Dom comes to Speed Dial to see Stu. He's like, "Okay, I'll hear you out. Let's have a chat about this." And Dom says, "Yeah, I was a rubbish dad, but I really want to get to know Eliza now." And he manages to tug on Stu's heartstrings a little bit because later on in the episode, Stu's telling Yasmin, "You know what? He doesn't seem so bad."
God, he keeps starting off like a syllable and then chickening out.
Maybe... I don't care about whether Eliza can see Dom or not, but it turns out that she can by the end of this.
I know, this is one of these things where I'm not bothered.
No, really not bothered by this.
Maybe.
And then they go and meet up in the precinct on Friday, and Dom wants to take her for an ice cream, but he says he's forgotten his wallet. He does the old left my wallet back at home trick, and Eliza says, "Don't worry, Stu's rolling in it at the moment, so he'll pay for our ice cream."
"What is that?" And he says, "Oh, it's a long story or something." So Dom knows that Stu's got loads of money. Is he gonna...
Well, it seems like
he's going
to try and get involved, get into the family, and then scam him back.
Do you think that he's going to pull one of these Weatherfield child selling storylines where he says, "Give me 50k and I'll never see Eliza again"?
Oh yeah, maybe.
That's what I'd do. Get out of it and you get money.
It might be quite fresh if it turns out that Stu suspects him of being nefarious, but actually Dom's intentions are perfectly
normal, nice.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think either of us really care. Don't think any of us really care about this one, so let's move on. We
don't need to dwell on things that we're not.
No, we don't.
There's
Cassie,
so much else to talk about. On Wednesday, Cassie comes to the garage and she wants to spend the day with Tyrone, but he's busy, so they suggest having dinner at the pub. So I guess that's lunch.
Yes.
So in the pub, I don't care if you call it dinner or lunch. I just want to know what time we're having it. That's all my opinion.
If it's on Coronation, it's dinner. It's at 12 o'clock.
Okay. In the pub, Mary is suspicious of the fact that Cassie is in the booth flirting with Dev, and Cassie just getting completely drunk over the course of the afternoon, falls off a seat at one point. And when Tyrone comes back, he realises that she's been in there this whole afternoon, getting off her face.
So Dev was a little bit, he had a go at Bernie for supposedly having a relationship with Big Garth, but he was putting it out there for Cassie on Wednesday. How hypocritical, Dev.
Exactly. Maybe that's why he's worried, because he's projecting. So Tyrone's not pleased with Cassie and thinks it's going to jeopardise her recovery, so she lets Tyrone drag her home. He gets her a glass of water and says he's proud of how far she's come, but doesn't want her to blow it. And she's kind of blaming him for letting her drink, and that feels like a very typical addict thing to do. She's excited to see the kids on Friday because they're coming back from Norfolk, because as we all know, this is real life and they've got to start school.
Yeah, they've got school next week.
So on Friday, Tyrone tells Cassie he's off to go and fetch the kids, and she wants to go to meet them as soon as possible, but she says no, there's no point. They won't be able to hear you because they have the headphones in. So go down to the job office like you said. And she says, I haven't got any money to buy any food or anything. So Tyrone gives her 20 quid. And she says, right, I promise I won't get drunk. So Tyrone finds Evelyn in the cafe and says, can you look after the girls this afternoon because I've got to go to the dentist. I love these child custody discussions, whatever they're called. So she says, is Cassie not around? Why can't she look after him? But she agrees, so she's back at home. She is holding the fort with the kids. They don't know where Cassie is, and Tyrone says she's coming back later. And when Cassie finally does come home, she's so excited to meet the girls, but she's obviously, I think she's nicked this pizza. She's got this pizza. She says there's a frozen
it looks like
pizza.
It's seen better days,
it's
that pizza
to
box.
pieces. She pulls it out of somewhere. And she's
Well,
obviously wasn't
this...
20 quid's worth.
Yeah,
They say, where have you been? And she's like, I went on the
bus,
I got to the wrong place, I found a friend, spent the afternoon with them, job centre was closed. Evelyn's like, don't believe a word of it. So Tyrone offers her a job at the garage answering the phones.
Yeah, when Evelyn came into the show, she worked at the garage for a bit, didn't she?
Yeah,
so
it must be in the blood.
Following on her mother's footsteps. We can guess that
things went awry.
Cassie's story was a bit cock and bull.
Well, we know that
she was actually using that £20 to score. Did you enjoy this story this week?
Yeah.
Felt like it wasn't as important compared to the Rovers stuff. Definitely Cassie is coming across as being quite manipulative and unlikable.
I don't think she's unlikable still. I think she's dangerously charismatic.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
She's not charming me so much at the moment. I think that Claire's still doing a good job with the character, but I'm not finding myself liking her or rooting for her or anything.
She reminds me of Abby.
Well, speaking of Abby, we get another week where we don't get her. I hate it when they look like they're going to introduce characters that could actually be a nice addition to the story and then they just don't show them again. I mean, you've literally got Dean, Abby's drug dealer, is the one that's presumably provided Cassie with whatever she got off with today, but we haven't seen either of them. It's frustrating, but maybe that's going to be next week. Good to see Evelyn back again. I kind of hoped that there'd be a little bit more cattiness between the two of them.
I think Evelyn is playing it safe and she's holding back and she's letting Tyrone discover.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If she sticks her oar in now and interferes, Tyrone and Cassie will blame her. But if she takes a step back and lets Cassie destroy her own life, grave, she then doesn't take the blame for it.
Okay, well, that was about it for this week's Corrie, wasn't it? You said that you enjoyed this week's one. I was so on it. There was a real mix of episodes. There was lots of okay stuff. Wednesday, I just think, was it Wednesday? I can't remember. Or was it Monday? One of the two of them. I just didn't get on with it because of the amount of business boring stuff was going on, but I
But
was
you
really
love
really
The Apprentice.
but I was really into it today. So the score went up, but still it's going to end up being another 3.5, I think, for me.
Well, you said you didn't like it, then you give it 3.5. That's what I'm going to give it, and I liked it.
Oh, I thought you were going to go higher than that. I thought there were great bits at the end of the week and not so great bits earlier.
As we were reading stuff out, I was thinking, like the whole Dom and Stu storyline. No.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Maybe it is 4. I don't know. I think I'll give it 3.5.
It was not a 4 week this week. I'm gonna give it 3.5 naked archdeacons flapping his bits around in a lake out of 5. What about you?
I'm gonna give it 3.5 inspirational quotes.
Only half a quote, you tease.
Yeah, to be.
Character of the week this week. What have we got? This week?
We've got Ryan, Daisy, Jenny, Stephen, Ronnie, Ed, Michael, Paul.
You got Bernie.
Billy.
You got Bernie.
I love Bernie. Do you like a Bernie?
Yeah.
Cassie, Evelyn, Tyrone.
Stop
you asked me what characters there were, and I'm answering you. Jenny.
I don't know if there was anybody that super stands out above everybody else this week.
Jenny.
I found Ed quite amusing to watch this week, just with how like gung ho he was being about all these business deals, despite and not being able to pick up on Ronnie's hints that maybe he needs to slow down.
You're never going to believe it, Ronnie, but I've opened an ISA with a very reasonable interest rate for our savings plan. You're never going to believe it, Ronnie, but I've invested in premium bonds.
I don't think it's going to happen very often, but I think I will go with Ed this week. Just because. What about you?
Jenny.
Why?
Because she's great and she's loving life and Stephen Reed, like we've been saying she should do for months. Get in there, my girl.
Okay.
Get yourself a Reed baby. Make yourself part of the Platts for life. See, she was looking around, wasn't she, at that table going, oh, look at all the happiness and joy.
She was, yeah.
Bring forth a new life.
She was.
Forever be Audrey's stepdaughter.
Well,
how about that?
Your life is destined for misery if
Gail's
you go out
sister-in-law.
Your life is destined for misery if you're going out with Stephen Reed, because you know what they say: read it and weep.